Have you seen this? What do you think? When a group of engineers and researchers gathered at a warehouse in Washington 10 years ago, they knew they were onto something big. They were building a battery. Batteries about the size of a refrigerator held enough energy to power a house. It could be used for decades. The engineers pictured people plunking them down next to their air conditioners, attaching solar panels to them, and everyone living happily ever after off the grid. That's how it happened. Instead of the batteries becoming the next great American success story, the warehouse is now shuttered and empty. All the employees who worked there were laid off, and more than 5,200 miles away, a Chinese company is hard at work making the batteries in Dalian, China. Also, it was a government-engineered, government research funded. 2,000 US. This is American capitalism in a nutshell. We should listen to this just because it's funny.
Aileen Humphreys is the producer and editor of 1A On Demand. This program comes to you from WAMU, part of American University in Washington, distributed by NPR. I'm Sarah McCammon. Jen White will be back on Monday. This is 1A.
Okay, maybe I pushed the wrong button. I pushed the wrong button. It's supposed to be this one. Sorry.
It's a favorite promise of politicians. Keep manufacturing jobs and technology in America. And yet the U.S. keeps losing both to other countries. NPR's Laura Sullivan.
Oh, how we keep losing them like our keys. We're just dropping our keys and we can't find them, chat. With our jobs and our technology, we can't find it.
Laura Sullivan and Courtney Flatt from Public Radio's Northwest News Network investigate one story about a cutting-edge battery and how the U.S. may have lost the next big thing to China again.
Chris Howard is standing in the rain outside an empty warehouse in Mukilteo, Washington.
We used to have 10 shipping containers here. There were empty containers back here, customers and clients coming for visits.
Howard used to work in this warehouse with more than a dozen other engineers and researchers for an American company called Uni Energy. Its name is still on the sign out front. What they were doing here was building a battery, not just any battery, something called a Vanadium Redox flow battery. It was about the size of a refrigerator, and Howard and the rest of the employees thought it was going to change the world.
It was more than a job. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into developing a product that we were really excited about and really proud of.
Unlike batteries and cell phones or even cars, these batteries could charge and discharge energy for as long as 30 years. And this particular design seemed to hold enough energy to power a house. Researchers pictured people plunking them down next to their air conditioners, attaching solar panels to them, and everyone living happily ever after off the grid.
It was beyond promise. We were seeing it functioning as designed, as expected.
They thought the batteries would be the next great American success story, but that's not what happened. Today, this warehouse is shuttered and empty. All the employees who worked here were laid off. And across the world, a Chinese company is making the batteries in Dalian, China. The Chinese...
I want to get that battery. I should call up that factory. And grab that battery. Sounds pretty based.
China. The Chinese company didn't steal this technology. It was given to them by the U.S. Department of Energy. An NPR investigation found the department allowed the technology and jobs to move overseas, violating its own licensing rules, while failing to intervene on behalf of U.S. workers in multiple instances.
What? Did the U.S. government not defend Americans instead of work for the interest of foreign capital? Oh, no. Or international capital, I should say. What a surprise. This is why they hate China, by the way. They hate China because the Chinese government takes care of Chinese people. And they're like, how dare you take care of your own people? You're supposed to serve capital. How dare you? Stop building high-speed rail. Stop building apartments. Stop raising their standard of living. Don't you know they're just supposed to be slaves?
Instances, according to internal department emails. Now China is forging ahead, investing millions into this cutting-edge green technology that was supposed to help keep the U.S. and its economy out front.
It just is mind-boggling.
Joanne Skivosky is the vice president of finance for a U.S. company called Forever Energy that has been trying to get a license from the department to make the batteries here for more than a year.
This is technology made from taxpayer dollars. It was invented by a national lab, and it's deployed in China, and it's held in China. To say it's frustrating is an understatement.
Department of Energy officials declined NPR's request.
By the way, this is reality in a nutshell. You should show this to any right winger you ever talk to when they talk about innovation and capitalism and whatever. What happens in America and what happens in the reality is that pure researchers who care about stuff because of the love of science and learning, who, yes, they want to have a nice job and a comfortable life, but they're not motivated to study battery tech for money. They're motivated in it because of their sci-fi nerd fucking visions and their interest in the technology and the engineering challenge. Well, those people are funded by government money. They actually invent something that's usable and productive for reality. And what happens? Then it gets sold off at a tiny cents on the dollar to the private market. And what do? They move it overseas. Because, chat, they don't want American workers to have important jobs. Why do you think chip manufacturing is in Taiwan? Because Taiwan was a military dictatorship. Chip manufacturing was located in Taiwan because they couldn't do it in the West. They couldn't have our high-tech chip manufacturing in Western countries. The working class and the left might have too much leverage over the modern economy, over the weapons systems manufacturing. So you can't have that. So you need to move it into a foreign outpost. Like, so many people are like, wow, isn't it stupid for our entire global economy to be in this foreign island right off the shores of communist China? That's crazy. It's not crazy. They were trying to avoid the situation of the left in the West having too much ability to have leverage over the economy. And so they picked a place that was a military dictatorship where they had control, where they could kill organizers. They could kill leftists with impunity. It's actually all by design, and it's actually quite ingenious design. Similarly now, like, what, you're going to build the batteries of the future in America? Hell no. Hell no.
Interview, and wouldn't explain how technology that cost U.S. taxpayers $15 million ended up in China. But after NPR sent department officials detailed questions laying out the timeline of events,
cutting edge. That's what I'm talking about, because the cutting edge is the shit that actually matters, man.
Officials terminated the license it gave to the Chinese company. In a statement, officials said the department, quote, takes American manufacturing obligations extremely seriously and is now, quote, undertaking an internal review of the licensing of vanadium battery technology. The story of how this happened begins where the battery was born, 3 hours southwest of Seattle, in the basement of a government lab called the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, where Courtney went to visit.
Safety goggles on?
Yep.
Vince Sprinkle works with energy storage here at the lab.
We're going to go down into the redox flow.
I talked to almost all the major investment banks. None of them wanted to invest in batteries, Yang said in an interview, adding that the banks wanted a return on their investments faster than the batteries would turn a profit. You remember what I said earlier? Remember what I said earlier about how in China they plan ahead longer than the next quarter for the next election? That's why they're being made in China.
Lab.
It was down here in 2006 that more than 24 scientists began to suspect that a special mix of acid and electrolyte could hold unusual amounts of energy without degrading. They turned out to be right. Do you feel kind of like on the cutting edge of learning about these batteries?
Yeah, we are. I mean, I think we've got one of the leading research groups in the country and probably the world in this technology.
It's because of this leading edge that when a success happens, the lab encourages scientists to go out and see if they can make and sell the inventions in the real world. The lab and the U.S. government still hold the patents because American taxpayers paid for the research. But the Department of Energy licenses the patents to scientists and companies willing to take a shot. In this case, it took 6 years and millions of taxpayer dollars to discover the perfect battery recipe. Gary Yang was the lead scientist, and he was excited to see if he could make them. In 2012, he left the lab with the license in hand and started Uni Energy Technologies at the warehouse in Mukilteo, Washington.
I left the lab, follow legal process, and start Uni Energy Technology in Washington State.
He hired engineers and researchers, but then he ran into trouble. He says he couldn't find any U.S. investors.
I talked to almost all major investment banks, none of them invest in battery.
So he turned to a Chinese businessman in a company called Dalian Runke Power, and its parent company, which agreed to invest and even help manufacture the batteries. And so began a slow shift. First, Chris Howard said, it was just some parts. Ultimately, it was the whole process.
Manufacturing was subsequently shifted to our sister company in China.
Oh, so manufacturing was subsequently shifted. It sucks that we're not developing this technology, but I'm glad somebody is. Thank God for President Xi. Am I right, Solar Lander?
And they would take on that role.
In 2017, Yang and Uni Energy formalized the situation and gave Runke Power an official sublicense, allowing the company to make the batteries.
So here's the thing. Companies can choose to manufacture in China. But in this case, Yang's original license clearly says on page 6 he has to sell batteries in the United States. And those batteries have to be, quote, substantially manufactured here. Yang acknowledges he didn't do that. He was mostly selling batteries in China, and the batteries he did sell here were largely made in China. But he says in all those years, the department never raised any concerns or intervened.
This company was founded by the Chinese Academy of Sciences, a Runke Power company. So it's a government enterprise.
Then, in 2019, Chris Howard said he and the other engineers were called to a conference room. Supervisors told them they, too, would have to go to China to work there for 4 months at a time at Runke Power.
And that was set to be increased on the premise that there were certain government programs, Chinese government programs, that would support funding efforts. So it was unclear, certainly to myself and some of the other engineers, what the plan was.
In a statement, the department said that license monitoring is a priority and that a review of this case is underway. All of which brings us to Yang. Yang was born in China, but he is a U.S. citizen and got his Ph.D. at the University of Connecticut. He says he wanted to manufacture here, but at the time, China was doing more to encourage battery production. And he told us China could do it better.
In this field, manufacturing engineering, China ahead of the U.S.
China's ahead.
Bro, we couldn't engineer our way out of a paper bag. If the United States fought China, we would get fucking raffle stomped. They would just cut off our treats and we'd be fucked.
Of the U.S.
Ahead of the U.S. Many wouldn't believe engineering-wise ahead.
He says far from helping China, the Chinese engineers were helping his U.S. employees. But you can see in several news reports at the time, it was helping China. The Chinese government launched several large demonstration projects and announced millions in funding.
Wow, the Chinese government did what you were supposed to do competently, funded the promising new storage technology, gave it money, had better manufacturing, better engineers, took the idea that the American government was so helpfully able to develop with our government tax dollars, and then using government-sponsored enterprises and government planning, they invested and brought it into market so that people could actually use it. Amazing. Yeah, they're way better governed than we are. I wonder what's going on. People who are anti-CCP are drinking the Westoid Kool-Aid 1,000%. Now, that's not to say that the CCP is not without problems. It definitely has problems. And it's just comical how inferior the United States is at running a fucking state. There's no question.
Things began to take off in China. Here in the States, Yang was once again in financial trouble. So he made a decision that would again keep the technology from staying in the U.S. He transferred the license from Uni Energy to a company called Vanadium.
Vanadium is based in the Netherlands, and we will set up a holding company in Switzerland.
Roelof Plottenkampf is Vanadium's founding partner. Plottenkampf told NPR the company's plan was to continue making the batteries in China and then set up a factory in Germany and eventually maybe the U.S. He says he has to manufacture in Europe because the European Union has strict rules about these things.
I have to be a European company. Yeah, or certainly.
Wait a minute. Europe has rules about where you can manufacture stuff for the purpose of encouraging the wealth and prosperity of Europe? Nah, wait, no way, dude. No fucking shot. Wait, no way, dude. He's like, this is one of the things that's really frustrating is Donald Trump was right about one thing. The U.S. taxpayer and the people of America are the cucks of the world. We are being robbed. But we're not being robbed for the benefit of us, us. We're being robbed for the benefit of global capital. That's our own goddamn fault.
Non-Chinese companies in Europe.
But the United States has these rules too, and any transfer of a U.S. government license needs U.S. government approval.
Which Yang apparently had no trouble getting.
Fair enough, Cable Man.
We looked at department emails and found that last summer on July 7th, one of the top officials at Uni Energy wrote to a government manager at the Department of Energy lab in Washington, saying they were going to make a deal with Vanadis. We believe they have the right blend of technical expertise, the official wrote. The manager wrote back that he would need confirmation. A second employee sent confirmation an hour and a half later, and the license was transferred. Now, if anyone from the lab or the Department of Energy during that hour and a half thought to check whether Vanadis was an American company or whether it intended to manufacture in the United States is unclear. Even Vanadis' website says it plans to make the batteries in China. Department of Energy officials told us they take all license transfers seriously and have recently closed significant loopholes. But they acknowledge their efforts rely to some extent on, quote, good faith disclosures by the companies, which means if companies like Uni Energy don't say anything, the U.S. government may never know. It's a problem government investigators found has been going on for years.
Oh, do we not have any investigators that make sure people aren't robbing us blind? Oh, did we get tricked because we don't have enough regulators?
In 2018, the Government Accountability Office found the department lacked resources to properly monitor its licenses, was relying on antiquated computer systems, and didn't have consistent policies across its labs.
It was an American company, Forever Energy, that actually read the vanadium battery license and raised a red flag more than a year ago. Joanne Skivosky and others there say they repeatedly warned department officials that the Uni Energy license was not in compliance. Officials repeatedly told them it was.
How is it that the National Lab did not require U.S. manufacturing? Not only is it a violation of the license, it's a violation to our country.
Skivosky hopes that now that the department has revoked the license, Forever Energy will get a chance.
I hope China steals the technology. And makes it anyway. Honest to God, we are a shambolic shit country, honestly.
Get a chance. They're hoping to open a factory in Louisiana.
We are ready to go with this technology.
Skivosky told us it will be hard at this point for any American company to catch up. Industry trade reports list Dalian Runkey Power as the #1 manufacturer of vanadium flow batteries worldwide. And the bigger question looming over all of this is whether China will stop making the batteries once an American company is granted the right to start making them.
That may be unlikely. Chinese news reports announced this summer that China is about to bring online one of the largest battery farms in the world, hoping to set new records for energy output. The reports say the entire battery farm is built out of vanadium redox flow batteries. I'm Courtney Flatt.
And I'm Laura Sullivan, NPR News.
Look at that, chat. Literally what they described, a huge battery farm covered in solar panels. We live in an inferior country. Pathetic. An 800 megawatt hour redox flow battery has been designed to buffer load peaks, bridge lulls, and heat homes. China plans to connect its biggest battery farm to the grid before year end. It's been designed to consist of 10 units rated at 20 megawatts each, for a total storage capacity of 800 megawatt hours. It will thus be able to deliver its peak output of 20 megawatts for a full 4 hours. The first half of the capacity is slated to be available in 2021, with the second half coming online next year. By comparisons, Europe's largest battery storage power station is located in Schleswig-Holstein. It can store about 50 megawatts of electrical power and release it with an output of 40 megawatt hours. Back in 2017 in Australia, Tesla built the world's largest battery farm at the time, boasting ratings of 100 and 125 megawatt hours. This is 800. So this will be the biggest battery farm in the world then? A storage system of a similar order is set to be enlarged to 360 megawatts and over 2,500 megawatt hours. No lithium nowhere. A big difference compared to the other record holders is that the system in Dalian in the northeast of China will use redox flow batteries with vanadium electrolyte instead of the lithium-ion variant. Redox flow batteries have two major advantages over their lithium-ion counterparts. First of all, they do not lose any capacity even after thousands of charge and discharge cycles. And secondly, they are non-flammable. He adds that the Dalian battery farm is so safe that office space surrounding it is being expanded. The rooms can be heated using the warmth generated above all when the redox flow batteries are charged. And it gets even better. The battery farm's cooling system will double as a heat pump for the district heating network. After all, refrigeration compressors and heat pumps are basically two sides of a coin, or rather of one and the same device. Both sides of the device, known as a compressor in tech speak, will be used in the electricity storage system in Dalian. The concept is really intriguing, says Lucis Ibing, who works in strategic development at RWE. The temperature of approximately 40 degrees centigrade reached by redox flow batteries while charging is probably too low to be any of use in the district heat network. But the higher the flow temperature, the less energy is needed by the heat pumps to heat the air to the temperature at which it is fed to the district heat network. This should pay off, especially in the winter when outside temperatures are extremely low and demand for heating is particularly high. However, it remains to be seen whether it makes economic sense. So stuff like this is necessary if we're going to do things like, you know, use renewable energy. We're going to have storage facilities. If the Democrats somehow hold on to the House and gain 2 seats in the Senate, they need to pass a massive infrastructure bill. This is a critical time for the future of this country. It feels like the boat's sinking. Fucking terrible, man. Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis. We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers, and I will never fuck you over by selling you crap.